Hello, everyone. Back for another Car Talks. In this Car Talk, let's talk about code. More specifically, let's talk about fancy code and the fact that it's not necessary. What do I mean by that statement? Well, I mean by treat code as it is a utility, not necessarily an work of art. And there's some people that are probably going to disagree with me here. And by all means, please let me know in the comments. But in my opinion, code is supposed to do one thing and one thing only, and that just execute and do some task. Now, it's the code, the outcome of the code is what's important, not necessarily what it looks like. What it looks like can actually be detrimental to what we're trying to do. So, for example, let's say that you write a piece of code that, this extremely fancy work of art that only senior developers will understand, and like this elegant. I just love the way you loop this together and how this iteration does this sort of thing, and you've really saved so much code, so much space by doing this, and the code is so small. I can't believe you actually got that functionality out of that. All that is ridiculous. That's just ridiculous, because code is about, not only is that it runs, that fancy code, sure, it may run just as fine as some, quote unquote utility code would do, but what happens if somebody else has to maintain it? They look at it and like, what in the hell is this? I don't understand why you are doing this like this. This just does not make sense, and it takes an hour to comprehend what you're doing. That kind of code doesn't make you look smart. It makes you look stupid, because it makes you look almost egotistical if you write code that's just way too complicated for what you're doing. Now, there are times when some senior developers, honestly, they're just so used to doing it that way, they may just do it that way. And that's fine, but it's just all about doing the bare minimum to get the job done, to get the code right, and to build it in a way that it's easily extensible, easily changeable over time. Plus, that other people can actually understand it. One big example, one big beef that I usually have is, we're talking about PowerShell. I know a lot about PowerShell, and I always take everything back to this. So, for example, I hate it when PowerShell. I know PowerShell is a very powerful language, and it can do a lot of stuff. And when necessary, you can drop down to doing things in .NET and C# even in PowerShell. But in my experience, I've been writing PowerShell for it's almost 10 years now, and I can count on one hand, okay, maybe two hands, how many times that I have actually had to go down into to query a Win32 API with Pinvoke, or call some static .NET class, or to do those sort of things. 9.5 times out of 10, PowerShell itself will be able to do that in some manner. And it just drives me crazy when people try to get fancy, and they just automatically assume that PowerShell can't do something, and they just go back to their roots of, I'll just do it in C# real quick. If you're writing PowerShell, keep your C# out of my PowerShell. That's my thing. Make it understandable, make it easily readable. Don't get fancy. So for the gist of this car talk is just about pretty much me rambling about people trying to get fancy in their code. It's not necessary. It's a waste of time for other people's time to try to understand your stuff. It doesn't make you look smart. I think it makes you look stupid and egotistical if you are writing code that is fancier than what it should be, just for the fact that you think like, oh, this PowerShell stuff, or this whatever, this type of code is just too elementary for me. I can't write code that simple. I'm going to write this elegant solution. It doesn't. That's just crazy. That's just craziness to me. But yeah, don't write fancy code. Keep it simple. Code is a utility, and